Her phone was buzzing on the counter. One message, 7 words, same hotel, same room, don't be late. That was the moment I stopped being her fool. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, it just went quiet. Well, hey there, my friend. I'm mighty glad you're here with me today, because what you're about to hear isn't just another story. It's a piece of a man's heart, the kind that's been bruised, tested, and rebuilt stronger than anyone ever expected. And if you've ever trusted someone so deeply that you didn't see the knife until it was already in your back, then you'll understand every word I'm about to share. Because this isn't just about betrayal. It's about quiet strength, the kind that doesn't roar but stands firm. And before we get into it, I want you to settle in. Let me take you through this moment piece by piece, because in this house, on this channel, we tell the truth even when it hurts. We speak from the soul, and we never pretend that pain isn't real. So welcome, sit back, and let this old man tell you what happens when trust breaks and silence becomes your greatest weapon. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family folks in town admired. My wife, Clara, had that easy smile that made people believe she was pure kindness wrapped in Sunday perfume. People used to say we were the couple that never fought, the pair that still held hands at church. They saw the porch lights glowing every Friday night, not knowing those same nights she'd be slipping away with stories about dinner and laughter. My son Daniel always said Mom was the heart of the home, and my daughter-in-law Grace called her the perfect woman. Even our neighbors used to wave and say they hoped to grow old like us. If only they knew how silence can sit between two people at the dinner table and feel heavier than any storm. Clara had a way of making everything look fine on the surface, but underneath, the warmth had started to rot. The late nights, the new perfume, the laughter that didn't sound like it used to. I wanted to believe we were still that happy couple everyone saw. But sometimes the prettiest smiles hide the sharpest secrets. I gave most of my life to building the life we shared, not just in the way a man works a job, but in the way he builds dreams with both hands, steady and slow. The house we live in now isn't just wood and walls. I built it board by board on a piece of land I inherited from my father. Back then, Clara used to bring me sweet tea while I hammered in the summer heat. She'd lean against the porch post and say, "This house will hold our whole story." And I believed her. I gave up nights, weekends, even a few dreams of my own to make sure she never had to worry about a thing. When the factory laid me off in my 40s, I picked up odd jobs just to keep the lights on. I signed my name on every line of that mortgage so she wouldn't have to. I planted the oak tree out back the year we married. It's taller than the roof now. That tree's seen birthdays, Sunday dinners, arguments, quiet mornings, everything. And that's the part that cuts the deepest. I didn't just build a house, I built a life around a promise. A promise she broke with a single text message. It didn't happen with a scream, it started with a whisper. One Friday evening, right before she walked out for another one of those so-called girls' nights, I asked her if she wanted me to warm up some of the stew I made earlier. She barely looked at me. She laughed, but not the way she used to, and said, "You wouldn't understand. It's not that kind of night." Just like that, as if I was a burden. As if the man who built the ground she walked on didn't belong in the life she was living anymore. It was such a small thing. Just a line tossed over her shoulder while she adjusted her earrings in the hallway mirror. But it stuck like a splinter. I smiled back, nodded like it didn't matter, but inside, something twisted. I remember standing there, staring at that oak tree through the window. I swallowed the hurt, tucked it somewhere quiet, but I didn't forget it. No, I kept it. Because little cuts like that, they don't bleed right away. They wait, they build. After that night, the air in our home changed. Not all at once, but little by little, like a door creaking open to let in a cold draft you can't stop. Clara started coming home later. She'd waltz in smelling of wine and expensive perfume that wasn't hers a month ago. She stopped asking if I'd eaten. She stopped setting a plate for me. And when we did sit together, the silence between us felt like two strangers waiting for different trains. One evening, she looked across the dinner table and said, almost like a joke, "If we ever sold this house, I'd finally get to live a little." She laughed, but her eyes didn't match her smile. That house, the the one I built with my hands, suddenly sounded like something she'd already measured for someone else's life. It didn't stop there. I caught her checking the title papers in the drawer one morning, pretending she was looking for stamps. She didn't know I was watching from the hallway. A week later, she made a snide comment in front of our neighbor, calling me old-fashioned when I offered to drive her instead of letting her go out alone at midnight. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But inside, I was counting every shift in her tone, every look that wasn't meant for me, every moment that told me the woman I married was standing right there and still slipping away. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Sometimes silence is the sharpest blade, and I wanted her to hand me the truth herself without even knowing it. I've always believed that a lie has its own scent. It lingers in the air long after the words leave someone's mouth. It started small. One night I walked past the hallway and heard her whispering on the phone, not the soft, playful way she used to talk to her friends. This was low, sharp, careful. When she saw my shadow stretch across the floor, she ended the call faster than I could blink and smiled like nothing happened. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. Then the money started vanishing. Not a fortune, but enough to make me notice. Gas receipts that didn't add up, withdrawals she couldn't explain. I'd ask once, gently, and she'd brush it off like I'd lost my mind. "Don't worry about it," she'd say with that rehearsed little laugh. The kind people use when they want to end a conversation they shouldn't have started in the first place. A few days later, I found an envelope tucked behind the cutlery drawer. Legal papers. She thought I wouldn't see. Property inquiries. My name wasn't on the page. Her name was, and another man's initials scribbled on the corner. It was subtle, like someone sketching their future in pencil before carving it in stone. By then, I wasn't just suspicious. I knew something was rotting beneath the surface. And the worst part? She still looked me in the eye every night and lied like it was as natural as breathing. I didn't push her. I didn't explode. I just waited. Because when a secret grows this big, it eventually spills out on its own. And deep down, I knew that moment was coming. The truth came to me in the same kitchen where we'd shared hundreds of quiet meals together. It was a Friday, like all the others, but something about the way she rushed out that night told me the lie had grown bolder. She left in such a hurry she didn't even notice what she'd forgotten. Her phone was sitting on the counter. The screen lit up. One message, 7 words, "Same hotel, same room, don't be late." My stomach tightened, but my hands didn't shake. I picked up that phone like I was holding a loaded gun. She never thought I'd figure out her passcode, but I did. And when the screen opened, the truth didn't just whisper, it screamed. Pictures, messages, dates, plans. It wasn't just a fling, it was a second life. A life she'd been building piece by piece while standing under the same roof as me. There were conversations about property, about selling the house, about what they'd do when I was out of the picture. He even called me the old man. I stared at those words until they burned into me. I didn't make a sound. I didn't slam the phone. I didn't cry. I just listened to the silence of my own house. I saved everything. Screenshots, messages, bank statements, and tucked it all away where she'd never think to look. She came home hours later, laughing, smelling like someone else's night. She kissed me on the cheek, never knowing the clock on her double life had already started ticking. Sometimes the loudest revenge begins in silence. And that night, my silence was deafening. Now let me ask you something real, straight from one old heart to another. What would you have done if it were you? If you walked into your own kitchen and found proof that the person you trusted the most had been living a lie behind your back, would you have exploded right then and there? Or would you have swallowed it down and let silence do the talking for you? I'm curious because in that moment, every instinct in me screamed to confront her, to hold that phone in her face and ask why. But something colder, steadier, stronger told me to keep quiet, to let her keep walking deeper into her lie while I built my truth behind the curtain. So tell me, what would you have done? The night everything boiled over wasn't in the kitchen or the bedroom. It was at our family dinner table. The house was full. My son Daniel, my daughter-in-law Grace, even a couple of neighbors who thought they were walking into another one of Clara's warm Friday night gatherings. She wore her favorite red dress that night, the one she always saved for someone else lately. She had a glass of wine in hand and a smile painted so perfectly, no one would have guessed what I already knew. Halfway through dinner, she leaned back in her chair and said, "We should sell the house while it's still worth something. You don't need all this space anymore." Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were sharp, like a hunter dressing up the shot to make it sound like kindness. Everyone chuckled at first, thinking it was a joke, but I saw it for what it was. A test. A way to slowly push me out of my own life. I didn't answer her right away. She expected me to. She wanted to corner me in front of everyone, make it look like I was stubborn, unreasonable, like the old man holding on to a past that didn't fit anymore. But I just sat there, my fork resting against the edge of my plate, listening. The air grew tight around the table. She filled the silence with nervous laughter, but that silence belonged to me. It made her squirm. Daniel looked at me like he didn't understand what was happening. No one did, but I did. I'd already seen the papers, the messages, the plans. This was her first public move. She was trying to lay the groundwork to erase me from the life I built. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. I looked her in the eye, calm and steady, and simply said, "This house isn't going anywhere." She blinked, just once, and I saw it, that flicker of panic hiding behind her painted smile. And that was enough for me. I didn't need to shout. I'd already started winning. I've always believed you don't have to shout the truth to make it heard. Sometimes you just have to let it land in the right moment. A week after that dinner, she tried again, this time in the living room, just the two of us. She brought up selling the house like it was already a done deal, like my name wasn't on every board and every nail. She said, "It'll be easier for both of us. You can downsize and I can finally live a little." I didn't say anything at first. I just reached behind the armchair where I'd tucked away a small manila envelope. I placed it on the table between us. No words, just the sound of the paper sliding across the wood. She stared at it like it was ticking. Inside were copies of the messages she sent, the bank transfers, and one more thing she didn't expect: the updated deed to the house with my lawyer's signature already stamped. She didn't open it, not yet. Her hands trembled just enough for me to notice. I gave her a small, steady smile. "I've been doing some thinking," I said, calm as a man talking about the weather. "It's good to have everything in order." She forced a laugh, tried to regain her balance, but I saw it. The mask cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. She knew I knew something. She didn't know how much. Not yet, and that's exactly how I wanted it. I didn't show her everything, not the recordings, not the lawyer's clause, not the hidden copies tucked away in places she'd never find. I wanted her nervous. I wanted her guessing. Because a liar who doesn't know what you hold starts to unravel on their own. She thought she was smart. She thought she'd mapped out every inch of this life like a thief walking through a house she'd already claimed. But the thing about liars is they always forget one thing. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be timed right. It happened in the lawyer's office. She walked in dressed like she owned the world, smiling like the game was already won. She'd been whispering to Daniel about how things would be simpler once the house was sold. She thought I'd fold quietly. She didn't know I'd already moved everything she wanted out of her reach. The lawyer slid a folder across the table. She reached for it, confident, ready. But the folder wasn't what she expected. It wasn't a property agreement. It was the new will, the updated deed, and a copy of the prenup she forgot existed. Her name wasn't on a single line. Every right, every share, every inch of this house went to Daniel and Grace. And the accounts she'd quietly drained, the proof sat stapled right behind it. She looked up at me, the color draining from her face, that painted smile cracked clean down the middle. She whispered, "You can't do this." I leaned back in my chair and answered softly, "I already did." Then came the recording. A single clip of her laughing with the man she thought no one knew about. Her voice, her words crystal clear. Every lie she'd told me stacked neatly against her in a few seconds of sound. She didn't collapse because I yelled. She collapsed because there was nothing left for her to say. Greed builds walls, but truth knocks them down in silence. For a long second after that recording played, there was nothing. No breath, no sound, just the hum of the ceiling fan and the weight of her own lies pressing down on her shoulders. Clara sat there frozen, her fingers gripping the edge of the chair like the ground had disappeared beneath her. My lawyer didn't say a word. Daniel stared at his mother as if he was meeting a stranger for the first time. Grace's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I didn't enjoy watching her crumble. It wasn't joy, it was clarity. For months, she'd painted me as the fool, the slow, trusting old man who wouldn't see the knife coming. But the thing about knives is, they always cut the hand that wields them first. She tried to speak, but the words fell apart in her mouth. All that practiced charm, all those easy lies, none of it worked in a room filled with truth. She looked at me like I was the one who'd betrayed her, like I was supposed to let her ruin me quietly. But not this time. The lawyer cleared his throat, calm and professional, as he slid the documents toward her. "This is binding," he said. "Everything has been filed and finalized." Her hands shook. The life she thought she'd stolen had slipped through her fingers, right there, in silence. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need revenge that shouted. The truth was louder than anything I could ever say. By the time she stood up, her face was pale, her shoulders smaller. The power she thought she had was gone, and in its place was just the truth. Order had returned, and I hadn't lifted a hand. I'd only opened the door and let her lies destroy themselves. You know, I learned something standing on the other side of her lies. You don't always need to raise your voice to win. Sometimes patience does the heavy lifting. Sometimes silence is stronger than rage. If you build your life on truth, you don't have to chase justice. It finds its way back to you. And when it does, it's quiet, unshakable. Final. If you've stayed with me until the end of this story, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't take it lightly when someone sits and listens to an old man's truth. This wasn't an easy chapter of my life, but sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that need to be told the most. Now I want to hear from you. If you were standing in my shoes that night, if the person you trusted had been living a double life behind your back, what would you have done? Would you have kept silent like I did? Or confronted them right then and there? Tell me in the comments, because your voice matters here. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and check out the other stories waiting for you on this channel. And as always, stay strong, stay wise, stay blessed.